This is my first post, and despite the fact that it occurred in December, I still think about it on a daily basis since it's unlike anything I've ever experienced. I hope and provide some insight into what to do and what not to do if you ever find yourself in a similar circumstance. I went out late one night in early December to do some shopping. I'm a 31-year-old stay-at-home mother of two small children, so whenever my husband comes home from work, I prefer to go shopping, take a drive, or do errands without the kids. I arrived to the Target that I now visit at 8:30 p.m. I'm not a paranoid or anxious person, but I've taken several courses in human trafficking and done plenty of research on my own, learning to identify red flags as well as what precautions to always take whenever I'm out in public alone, especially at night. And I always carry several self-defense items on my person at all times just in case I park directly in front of the store next to a car caddy and made a mental note of the vehicles that park near. I was educated at a young age to constantly be aware of my surroundings, and being a control freak only makes you that way. Nothing looked out of the usual that night, and the parking lot was actually relatively empty, most likely due to the fact that it was a weekday. As soon as I walked in, I started exploring as usual, following the natural flow of the shop sections and the main aisle around. I had just been looking for approximately 10 to 15 minutes when I observed a young fellow in his mid-20s, dressed in a filthy gray two-piece wetsuit and dark brown boots. When he glanced over at me, I smiled and said hello. His face was utterly blank. The look in his eyes suggested that he was high on something, but he didn't appear to care about my gesture, and he soon went on. At first sight, there was nothing in particular that concerned me about him, except that he was merely meandering down the main aisle with no corridor basket, his hands in his pockets, and he didn't seem to be with anybody. I quickly kept buying and made my way to the next apartment without thinking twice. After a few minutes, I observed a second young male wearing the same identical gray sweatsuit and a comparable set of work boots as the first. And once again, no cart, no basket. He looked straight at me, then averted his eyes away when he realized I was gazing directly at him. At this moment, I became a little more attentive, but I kept my cool and continued browsing. Another 15 minutes had gone when a third older guy grabbed my eye, wearing the same gray sweatsuit and work boots with no cord, no basket, and his hands straight in his pockets. I figured they were in some kind of job uniform, maybe construction workers, but why weren't they wandering about together, and why didn't they have anything to buy? It was quite tough to concentrate on browsing at this point. I simply got a horrible feeling about these three guys, and it became evident to me over the following 20 minutes or so that something was clearly amiss. I felt as if the three guys were watching me, as if they were all communicating my whereabouts as I made my way around the shop, since each department I visited didn't take long for me to notice. One of the three males went by whichever side of whatever I was on at the time, making their presence known to me. I remained extremely watchful, trying not to panic or let my suspicions overwhelm me. Something about their presence seemed heavy and gloomy, so I wanted to test their intentions only to prove to myself that I wasn't overthinking things and that my awful gut feeling was correct. I started picking random miles and traveling back and forth between departments in an unorganized and random fashion, just to see if the men would continue to pass by me as frequently as they had before. With every aisle I popped into, there was just a few minutes later that one of them would make an appearance, staring me down as they passed by. It honestly felt like I was being surrounded like a wild animal hunted. Even the scariest part of all of this is, I began to clutch my cart so hard that if they approached too near, I believed I could simply use the cart to show them away, or at the very least, put some gap between us at this time. I'd been shopping for perhaps an hour, maybe a little more, and I was ready to buy my stuff, but I was honestly too uncomfortable to continue browsing even if I wanted to. The guys had been following me the whole time, and I was becoming more irritated. If there's one thing I'd like to mention, it's that the shop was quite empty around this time. One of the major reasons I like shopping at night, but this made the scenario considerably more uneasy than it already was.